Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of round 7 of Altibox Norway Chess 2019. There was one decisive result in the classical games. Dingley Ren defeated Shahryar Mamedyarov with the white pieces. The other 4 games ended in a draw, which meant they had to go to Armageddon. Let's take the results from the bottom. Karana beat Anand in a very nice attacking game in the Armageddon. Yu Yangyi was not able to beat Levon Aronian. That game ended in a draw, which meant Aronian got the full point. That leaves Wesley So against Magnus Carlsen and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave against Alexander Grishuk. Let's look at So against Carlsen first. Wesley So white, Magnus Carlsen black. It's the 12th of June 2019. Round 7 was played after a rest day, and Wesley So must have had a tough rest day because something terrible happened to him in round 6. I forgot to show you in the video on round 6. Let me quickly show you now. This is the position after the 46th move, rook c7 to a7 by Levon Aronian against Wesley So in the Armageddon game of round 6. If we do a body count, we see that black is a couple of pawns up, but white is better because of the rook on the 7th rank, the knight in a strong position, and that pawn on g6. Both players were in terrible time trouble. Aronian only had about 10 seconds left here, and it was only move 46. It was very unlikely he was going to make it till move 60. So had a bit more time, but not much, and here he played a horrible move, knight f5. And do you see the refutation of that move? Well, it's very simple. He blundered a mate in 1. Aronian saw it. Rook h7 is checkmate, and with only a handful of seconds on the clock, Aronian was able to execute that move. Bitter pill to swallow for Wesley So just before the rest day. He was so upset that he left the board even without shaking Aronian's hand. Back to round 7, where So has the white pieces against the world champion. d4. In the classical game, So had played e4, so he did not want to repeat that game. Knight f6, c4, g6, f3, and we have a Grunfeld defense, named after the Austrian Grandmaster Ernst Grunfeld. C takes d5, knight takes d5, that knight was kicked, went to b6, the knight was developed, bishop on the long diagonal, bishop e3, protecting the d4 pawn, castling from Carlsen, queen d2, knight c6, and castling queenside from Wesley So. f5, all theory so far, and so is e5, but now knight b4 was played many times, but Carlsen's move was only played twice before. He played f5, f4 in this position. Judith Polgar said in the live broadcast, it's a very complicated game with all 3 results possible. And Anna Rudolph, international master, said, this must be an engine-like preparation. It's also a pawn sacrifice. That pawn on f4 is just hanging. Can you not take it? Yes, you can take it. And then bishop e6 is given by the engine. Just developing that piece with compensation for the pawn. Maybe that's what Carlsen would have played, bishop e6. But Wesley So did not take on f4. He decided to play bishop f2. Not taking a pawn. Probably for psychological reasons, not wanting to get into Carlsen's preparation. Knight b4 from Carlsen. a3, kicking that knight. But look at this move. a5. A piece sacrifice. Wesley So thought for a while and did not take the piece. He played h4. Judith Polgar said there are psychological games going on. So is not accepting Carlsen's pawn and knight sacrifice, because then Carlsen will get the game he wants. Even if it's objectively good to accept the sacrifice. Lots of mind games going on here. You can take the piece, and then a takes b4, and Judith Polgar showed this variation live while the game was played. She showed knight b1, then knight d5, protecting the b4 pawn, which was attacked by the queen. And Polgar said black will play rook a1, and bishop f5, putting a lot of pressure on that knight on b1, and that's maybe how Carlsen would have played. The engine after a takes b4 wants to go with a knight to e4. And there's one nice variation that my engine spits out. Bishop takes e5 is possible here. Because if you take that piece, a second piece sacrifice, then there is rook a1 check. king c2, b3 check. And if you take that pawn, do you see it? Yes, rook takes d1 is possible. Very nice. That rook is protected through white's queen by black's queen. And this is about equal. After bishop takes e5, you can also take on b4. And that's a better move with some advantage for white. We don't know what Carlsen would have done after a takes b4, giving up a piece, because as said, So did not want to go for it. He played h4 instead. Bishop e6 from Carlsen, and again the knight was not taken, but knight h3 was played. Judith Polgar explained that white has his own trumps. He's now attacking the f4 pawn with 2 pieces, and he may want to play knight g5 or h5, and as Judith Polgar put it, So wants to attack very heavily himself. Knight a2 check was played by Carlsen to swap the knight on c3. The knights were swapped indeed, and now an important moment. Here, h5 was indicated by Polgar, and that is a good move. Knight takes f4 is also possible. Bishop h6 looks very strong, but there's bishop e3. And this is okay for white. We have an interesting fight on the board. But here, on the 16th move, Wesley So made a mistake. He played d5, and at grandmaster and master level this seems a good move at first sight. Judith Polgar's first comment was, I completely understand the idea to get rid of the d5 pawn. And Anna Rudolph said, dynamic approach by Wesley. But after a closer look, Polgar saw that that pawn can actually be taken by the queen. You have to be careful. You cannot take with the bishop. That's a bad mistake, because then there is bishop takes b6, removing that defender of the d5 bishop. And this works out good for white. But you can take, after d5, you can take it with the queen. That is tactically sound for black. And also the e5 pawn is now hanging. Suddenly white is in big trouble. Now both commentators were talking about chess blindness by Wesley So. And here So started to think, but it's too late. He just has a bad position. This is a picture that speaks 1,000 words. So has just played d5, buries his head in his hands, and Carlsen is pulling faces. He took the pawn with the queen, and then he gave this look. And Wesley So must have seen here what he had done. So saw nothing better than take the queen. Knight takes and rook e1 defending the e5 pawn. It's clear that something has gone badly wrong if you have to play a move like that. Polgar said So played too quickly. He has 10 minutes on the clock, but played like he has only 5 minutes. That's an interesting observation. Rook f5. Black is rounding up the e5 pawn anyway. He's going to win a second pawn. e6 is not really an option here, as now the bishop on g7 is opened up, and knight e3 is a very strong move here. After rook f5, bishop d3 was played, attacking the rook. The rook just took a second pawn. Rook takes, bishop takes. h5, desperation. White is just 2 pawns down and has no winning chances at all. And he has to win this game in the Armageddon. Black has draw odds. G takes h5. Instead of being a piece up, if he had taken on b4, he is now 3 pawns down. Knight g5, knight f6, coolly defending both h-pawns which were under attack. But here a nice tactic from Wesley So. He took on h7 anyway with the knight. No harm done for black. You should not take on h7, because then there is a nice move. Rook takes h5, and suddenly 2 pieces are hanging, and white will win his piece back with interest. Carlsen saw that and played rook d8, centralizing the rook, hitting the bishop on d3. The bishop saved itself. Bishop f7, knight g5, bishop d4, offering a bishop trade. Bishop went to e1. White's pieces are moving backwards. And b6. Bishop h4. A check. King stepped aside, and the rook comes on to the second rank. Now Wesley So sees that he's just 2 pawns down, has no winning chances. And by this time he was also down on the clock and decides to throw in the towel. He swapped up everything. Knight takes f7, king takes, bishop takes, king takes. He could take a pawn on h5, but lost another one on g2. Black is still 2 pawns up in this opposite colored bishop ending. And now So decided to give checks to the king. Carlsen, duly obliged, was happy enough with the draw. And after rook h6 check, both players looked at each other and shook hands. And yes, I have a picture of the handshake, but just at that moment, somebody stood in the way. Not sure who it was, if it is a player or an arbiter. The world champion has got a full point from all 6 Armageddon games he has played so far. On the 7th occasion, he did not have to play Armageddon because he won the classical game that was against Grishuk. Talking about Grishuk, let's look at what happened to him in his black game against Vachier-Lagrave in the Armageddon. White Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, black Alexander Grishuk. This is the position after the 29th move, queen b8 to c7 from Grishuk. Attacking the bishop with 2 pieces. Is Vachier-Lagrave going to defend that bishop? No, he's not. He played the beautiful move a5, a6 here. What a nice move. Can you just give up that bishop? Yes, you can. If you take the bishop, then queen takes, rook takes, b5, and there's nothing you can do against a pawn promoting. Rook b6, a7, and white will promote. Wonderful move, a6. Grishuk did not take the bishop. He played e6, b5, queen a5, king g2, h6, d5, white is winning, e takes d5, queen takes, and rook d8 hitting the queen. And now look at this move, the final move of the game. Also a beautiful move from Vachier-Lagrave. Do you want to look for the move yourself? Put the video on pause, see if you can find it. MVL took that rook. Rook takes d8, sacrifices the queen. You have to take it. And then the same thing happened as in the earlier variation. a7 will be played. And black is powerless against the pawn promoting. It's defended by the bishop, the promotion square. For example, bishop e5. a8 queen, queen takes, bishop takes. And white is a bishop up and a pawn. And you and I would also win this position against Alexander Grishuk. So after that shot, queen takes, d8 check, Grishuk resigned. So round 7 gave 2 wins for white and 2 wins for black in the Armageddon. And that leads to the following standings. Magnus Carlsen still leads the way on 11 points. Armageddon has 9. Yu and Ding, the 2 Chinese players, are in 3rd and 4th place. So has 7 points. Caruana 6.5. Vachier-Lagrave and Anand both on 6. Mamedyarov is on 5 points and Grishuk is still at the bottom of the table with 3.5 points. 2 rounds to go. Round 8 will be played on Thursday the 13th of June and we'll see Carlsen against Yu, Mamedyarov So, Vachier-Lagrave Ding, Armageddon against Caruana and Grishuk against Anand. I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel and please leave a comment. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. See you for round 8. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.